is the beginning of the 7 trumpets. So it's like the 7 trumpets are the last seal. So it's like Russian nesting dolls. You open the last one and there's a whole other thing there. Then you start opening those, and when you get to the last one, there's 7 more things there. So, so you get 3 cycles of 7. The narrative takes a pause and starts talking about this mother, this woman who gives birth to a promised one, and I think we all know this is Jesus. And then Satan tries to snatch the baby, and God takes the baby up to heaven instead, brings the mother to the wilderness and takes care of her. She, in the meantime, has more children. So this is pretty good consensus amongst everybody that this is talking about Christians, you and I, the church that come after Jesus, who are, he's our firstborn big brother, and we are the followers of Christ. And then she is met with a big beast, and this is where we get a lot of our beast imagery. 7 heads and 10 horns. That takes 2 Old Testament passages that we've already covered and smushes them into one. Okay, so the 7 heads was part of Isaiah, and the 10 horns was in Daniel, and now you've got both of them coming together. And then it talks about the last 7 plagues. These last 7 plagues are the 7th trumpet. So when the 7th trumpet sounds, it sets off, here again, dominoes of last 7 plagues. Again, lots of stuff that sounds like the Exodus. Then you get another mother, only this one is the whore of Babylon riding the dragon. And so here you can see the antithesis of that. And so you're meant to compare these 2 women. And they call her Babylon, and in Babylon, we know that Babylon originally comes from Babel, like the Tower of Babel, this region there, that became an empire that, that took Israelites into captivity, that they dogged them, the whole Bible. They're the main bad guy. But even when there were other nations, Assyria, who were oppressing the Israelites, they're called Babylon in the Bible. And that's the idea that there is a Babylon. Babylon is the empire that oppresses, the empire that is working against God's people, and that there always is one. Whatever it is, it's Babylon. You get the idea? So don't get caught up on the fact that we don't have a nation called Babylon today. We got plenty of nations that act like big bad oppressors, so we do have Babylon. And here you have the beast with the 7 heads and the 10 horns comes back. Both of them in chapter 12 and then again in 19 talk about the fall of the beast. So that's where you can't take everything, like they're not going to cover everything chronologically. They move back and forth sometimes. And then we have the millennium, and this is one of the reasons that y'all have heard of like pre-millennium, a-millennium, post-millennium, folks. The fact that things don't go in a nice chronological order is why we have that debate. Is because it is up for debate. Who knows, right, where this comes in the timeline. But this is when Christ is enthroned, and he ushers in 1,000 years of peace and where the martyrs and the Christians are in charge and ruling. And then you have the New Jerusalem that comes down from heaven, and peace, and he wipes every tear from your eye. And this is the part that I can say to you all about turmoil in our country that I can't say to my students, which is I did say this some today actually. I believe that no matter who wins political races, no matter who takes over control, no matter what laws get enacted that help you or hurt you, evil does not have the final say. That good wins in the end, and that God watches over his people. And if you read Revelation, you will get equal amounts of fear and hope. Just like today, we have equal amounts of fear and hope. And that you will get that. You will see the judgment of the judgment of the judgment. And just when you think, oh yeah, but I'm a Christian, so I don't get judged, right? That's not actually the way it reads. There are martyrs, which means people died. Get the idea? Okay, and so following Jesus and being one of the followers of Jesus doesn't mean that you're exempt from all of the trials of the world. What did Jesus say? In this world, you know it? In this world, you will have trouble, but take heart. I've overcome the world. Okay? Jesus didn't come to run a country, he came to save the world. Status of one of my friends today, I really so. We started last time talking about the throne room. I can't not talk about the fact that there's a crystal sea in heaven. We talked about how amazing that is, yes? The sea, as we have studied all the last 11 weeks, is the symbol of death and chaos. And in heaven, there's one that it looks like crystal, which means there's no chaos, which means it is completely tame. It means you can see straight through it, so you're not afraid of anything in there. Beautiful, beautiful image. And we talked about the living creatures around the throne. I don't think we talked about this one. Y'all with me? Think so? No. Okay, good. All right, so this is Revelation 5, verses 5 to 6. And what I want to do is just read it. And then y'all can ask me questions and tell me what you get out of it. I don't really think I have more to teach you. You got this. I want to see what you've learned, okay? So the surprising dragon slayer, Revelation 5, 5 to 6. Then one of the elders said to me, do not weep. See, the lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has triumphed. He is able to open the scroll and its 7 seals. Then I saw a lamb, looking as if it had been slain, standing at the center of the throne, encircled by the 4 living creatures and the elders. The lamb had 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God, sent out into all the earth. Is there anything we've talked about that you think you see in here? The imagery that maybe you understand? That's Jesus. Okay, so the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Who's the Lion of the tribe of Judah and the root of David? What are those terms for? What would a first century Jewish person think if you said, oh, the Lion of the tribe of Judah has arrived? He's the Messiah. He is the one that's been promised. The Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, is here. The Messiah. And in particular, we've talked about the fact that Messiah meant a lot of different things to different people. But what the term Messiah generally evokes is king. David's king. David's heir. The one who's going to reign forever and ever is here. The lion is here. And then he looks, and what does he see? A lion? A lion. Oh. A strong lamb that's been weightlifting. Right? Dead lamb. He's been slain. Do y'all see what I'm getting at here? You see the upside down? This isn't the only time it happens in Revelation. John will be told, hey, look over there, it's this. And he looks, and it's not what he was thinking. That's on purpose. That's on purpose. So, we think of the Lamb of God and the Lion of the tribe of Judah as Jesus, both, like, maybe it's not catching because it's like, duh. Y'all realize how weird that is? To say, look, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the conquering king is here, and you look and there's a dead lamb. You get it?
It's why the Jews have not accepted him.
Yeah. One of the reasons that they don't see that as a Messiah. That's not the Messiah. If Jesus were really the Messiah, he would be here on the throne even today. Because that is the promise. Part of the promise. get the idea?
I think it's important to know that it says looking as if it had been slain.
Yes, looking as if it had been slain. I'm sure that you're not gonna say he's dead, right? Like, he's not dead, but he bears the marks of the death, right? There's part of that. And then some of it is, there's a lot of look like, right? I don't know what I'm seeing, but it kind of looks like that. Yeah. But yeah, he's not dead, but he looks like he could be dead. All right, what is this lamb referred to? Is this a temple sacrifice? Lamb. Everybody got what it is? You don't sacrifice lambs in the temple most of the time. Hardly ever. But there's one time a year, Passover.
Yeah.
Passover. What's the significance of the Passover lamb? What did the Passover lamb? You killed the Passover lamb and you ate with your family. What's that significance of Jesus being the Passover lamb in particular?
You are redeemed from the wrath that's to come.
Did y'all hear it, Revelation? Did y'all hear it? If you will put the blood of the lamb on your doorpost, yeah? Then the death will pass over you. You have marked yourself as one of the people of God and escaped the judgment that is to come. See all the Revelation? Yeah, you see it? Get it?
Yep.
There's a lot there. There's a lot there. It's a powerful image. We tend to think of a lamb being slaughtered as payment for sin. But that isn't the image that's here. I'm not saying Jesus didn't pay for your sin, because he did. The image they're evoking here is escape from death. That's the image that they're evoking here. The lifeblood. Yeah. That's it. Marking yourself, choosing which household you're going to sleep under tonight. This doorpost, that doorpost. Yeah? Are y'all with me? Okay. All right, let's read another one, and I'll try not to talk as much. It's good when you see it, though, isn't it? It's rich. It's rich. All right, then this one is about overcoming. The war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back. But he was not strong enough, and they lost their place in heaven. The great dragon was hurled down. And here John does not want to stay in the world of imagery. He wants to make sure you know exactly what he's talking about. The great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil or Satan. He gives all the names, serpent, devil, Satan. He's like, this is what we were talking about, people. Okay? So of all of the things that are mysterious in Revelation, this is not one of them. We know who the dragon is. Who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled to the earth and his angels with him. Then I heard a loud voice in heaven say, now have come the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Messiah. For the accuser, that is the word Satan, means the accuser, okay? The accuser of our brothers and sisters, who accuses them before our God day and night, has been hurled down. Hurled back down where?
Here.
Well, thanks a lot, God. Where we are. Yeah? He was up there. He got ousted. Now he's here. Uh-oh. Right? Okay. Has been hurled down. They triumphed, and they is referring to the brothers and the sisters who've been accused, and in particular, the martyrs who are in the white robes that were washed with the blood of the Lamb from earlier context. They triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. They did not love their lives so much as to shrink from death. So how do you overcome? By the blood of the Lamb, word of your testimony. Thinking eternally. And being willing to risk remember what the temptations are? Lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, pride of life. How do you overcome being tempted by the accuser? The blood of the Lamb, identifying yourself with Jesus, right? Who was humiliated and went through pain and death and showed us how to triumph to the other side. And the word of our testimony, which is this, what we're doing right now, encouraging one another, telling each other, sharing with one another, showing, hey, God did this thing for me. Let me encourage you with what God has done for me, right? Building up the faith of one another in community, the word of our testimony, and not loving their lives so much as to shrink from death. That's the eternal mindset. That's the understanding that death is not the end. Right? And you need to love your life, just not so much that you're scared of death. Right? You need to love the opportunity that God has given you to share with the word of your testimony. Right? And to overcome by the blood of the Lamb. That stuff happens here and now. You're battling, the progress you make, the work you do for Jesus, that's now. Right? But death isn't the end, it's the beginning of a different thing. So we want to love both. Right? I think part of the problem that I had when I started studying, going back and studying this as an adult, really getting into more of the original context and this first century stuff and learning what things meant in Hebrew and all of this, one of the things that really changed for me is I realized what a lazy Christian I'd become. I'd become a Christian that was waiting around for Jesus to rescue her, like a princess in a tower. And I don't want to be no princess in no tower. I'm gonna pick up my sword, get down for myself, right? And so, waiting around for Jesus to rescue you. Oh, one day. And all I gotta do between now and then is hide. Okay? Make sure I make it in, right? Is not the mentality I believe now that he really ever wanted me to have. I don't think he wanted me to live in that kind of fear. I don't think he wanted me to wait and just be okay with how things are while I just wait to get rescued as if I'm the only thing that matters. And so understanding that you can love the life you're in while you are experiencing pain and death and torment like Paul, it makes no sense to anybody outside this room, right? But as a Christian, you can understand it, and the way you understand it is through experience. You can't really explain it to anybody except to say, I lived through it, right? And to have peace that passes understanding in the middle of the worst time, how do you say that's not real? That's as real as it gets. And once you've experienced that, boy, there's no going back, right? But it's the word of your testimony that is what's compelling, right? Watching people who were getting fed to the lions just be okay with it. Not fight back. They didn't fight back. It's amazing, right? That's the power. So the triumph doesn't look like what you think triumph looks like. And we again are used to, as Christians, talk about triumphing through the blood of the Lamb, but you understand how weird that is? That you're going to triumph with blood, which means you died or got hurt, or right? Yeah. All right. The dragon's pursuit. When the dragon saw that he had been hurled to the earth, he pursued the woman. This is the woman who had given birth to the male child. Okay, now most of the scholars that I've read say that most people believe this woman represents Eve, the mother of humanity, and is showing Jesus as the seed of the woman who's the snake crusher. Okay, you don't have to if you don't want to, but that's most of the commentaries that I read all kind of agreed on that. He pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. The woman was given the 2 wings of a great eagle so that she might fly to the place prepared for her in the wilderness, where she would be taken care of for a time, times, and half a time, out of the serpent's reach. Then from his mouth the serpent spewed water like a river, to overtake the woman and sweep her away with the torrent. But the earth helped the woman by opening its mouth and swallowing the river that the dragon had spewed out of his mouth. Then the dragon was enraged at the woman and went off to wage war against the rest of her offspring. And that word in Greek is the same word for seed on purpose, not just children, but seed. Those who keep God's commands and hold fast their testimony about Jesus. So once again, how do you overcome? How do you become part of the seed of the woman? It's not just Jesus, it's also his followers, according to this, who keep God's commands, hold fast their testimony, word of their testimony. Blood of the lamb, word of their testimony, not loving your life. That's a weird image, isn't it? Wonder what it means. Yes. I think so too. How did the dragon pursue? How did the dragon pursue her?
Kind of the image of the restless ocean
There you go.
that we've been seeing.
The torrent.
The chaos of the world and sin.
Yeah. You see, it's bringing these images from different parts of the Bible and smushing them together, handing it to you like that. What happened to all that water? God did not allow it to sweep her away. What happened? The earth swallowed it up. There was a separation and a coming back together. You see it? The earth swallowed up the torrent. Yeah? I wonder if there's ever been a good person pursued by bad people that got swallowed up. I wonder, Yeah. Do you see that trope that we talked about before? God's chosen people saved through the waters. Yeah? Right? And here you have the earth opening up and swallowing the water. One commentator said that the language here is very, very similar to the language that happens in, I think it's Exodus, maybe Numbers, when the earth swallowed up the people who had disobeyed. You remember? And, like a whole family just gone. Yeah? The earth opened up and swallowed them. It's that same phrasing there. It's interesting. In other words, the judgment that may have been meted out on earth up to now is going to start getting meted out against the dragon instead. You see, so it's weird imagery, but the water is important. The idea that she's pursued by the raging torrent that's trying to get her. This is death. This is chaos. This is the forces of evil. And in the end, God does not allow that to overwhelm her, but rather swallows that up and saves her by giving her 2 wings of a great eagle. That's another Old Testament phrase that refers to God saving Israel. He will bear you up on eagle's wings. You've heard this. Same phrasing there. But the weird thing is that she goes to a wilderness. Is the wilderness a place of salvation in the Bible? Oh. Wilderness is a place of testing in the Bible. So God has saved her. And the angels take care of her. She says she's been taken care of. For a time and times and half a time. You know what that means? A time and times and half a time. Y'all don't talk like that.
Three and a half.
It's
3.5 years.
3.5 somethings,
Something
right?
like that, yeah.
3.5 times.
Right.
There's a time and 2 more times and half a time, that's 3.5. Everything in the Bible, if you add it up, it'll be 3.5. And that's because that's 7 broken. You see? 7 is an important number, it means complete, the complete work. You break it in half, it's 3.5. Anything and a half in Revelation means bad. Okay? It's bad stuff, bad stuff. You don't want break it in half, that's not good. So several times in Revelation, you'll read a time and times and half a time. That's 3.5 times. And what is a time? I don't know. Don't matter. It doesn't really matter. Could be years, could be decades, could be generations. We don't know. The idea isn't to try to quantify it and decode it, but rather to understand that they're talking about a time of trial and tribulation. When you put 3.5 time up against wilderness, do y'all see that? It's 2 symbols of testing. So he saves her, he rescues her. This is that upside down backwards thinking. You're thinking, great, he's gonna take her to heaven. No, he didn't. Daggone it.
Same thing happened to the Israelites.
Yeah, the same exact thing happened to the Israelites, didn't it? God saved them out of Egypt
Send them to the water.
and sent them to wander in the wilderness for 40 years. Thanks, God. Right? He's got his plan. He's got his plan. You see the cyclical nature of it, right? Do you know what happened to Jesus as soon as he finished getting baptized? He went to the wilderness for 40 days and 40. Y'all, that is not by accident. Okay? That is all on purpose. Jesus is the new Israel. That's all you have to say, right? Yeah? He starts by getting baptized, splits the waters, comes out of the waters, goes to the wilderness to get tempted by the devil for 40 days and 40 nights. Do you see it? Very meaningful, all of it, all of it, all of it. It's theological statements. Jesus is Israel. Jesus is the firstborn that Israel could not be. Oh, y'all. Go study all firstborn, secondborn stuff in the Bible. Okay. Anyhow.
Now, there is mention of actual day numbers, though, like 1,260 days or whatever, in
Yeah.
the book of Revelation.
Yeah, you know what 1,260
There's
days
reason
is, don't
to-
you? 3.5 years. So,
So
the
there's
Hebrew.
reason to think.
Yes, that's right. So the Hebrew, well, the other thing is the word days doesn't always translate exactly. Like to us, day means a literal, time, but it may or may not have in the original language. I'd have to look it up. Sometimes they just say times, and we don't like that in English because it doesn't make any sense. So we'll sometimes put numbers there. But they had in their calendar year was 360 days. Because they didn't know about, sun orbits and all that stuff yet. They had about 360 days. So if you take 1260 and divide it by 360, you get 3.5 years. 7 break. Yep. It's cool, right? Right. 144, you see that in the Bible a lot, in Revelation. You know what 144 is, right? 12 times 12. 12 tribes of Israel, 12 disciples. All of Israel and all the Gentiles. You see it? 12 times 12. Oh, that's cool stuff. All right. The super beast. Revelation 13. I saw a beast coming out of the sea. It had 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 crowns on his horns, and each head had a blasphemous name. The beast I saw resembled a leopard, had feet like those of a bear, and a mouth like that of a lion. All right. Any of that ringing bells? Daniel saw 4 beasts. You remember what they are? A lion and a bear, a leopard, right? And then the 4th one was a super beast with an amalgamation of all of these things, right? And the super beast had 10 horns. Had 10 horns. Now, it doesn't have necessarily 7 heads, I don't think. I think that one's from Isaiah. The dragon with 7 heads, Leviathan from Isaiah. So he's taking all these things and pushing them together. Well, what did the beasts in Daniel mean? What did they refer to? What is John pulling from here?
Weren't the beasts in Daniel the various civilizations that, came in order?
Yes, they were civilizations. They were kings, and we don't have to guess at that. We might guess at which exact kings they were referring to, but the angel said these are the kingdoms of the world. These are the kingdoms of the world.
Babylonians, Persians, Greeks, Romans.
Potentially, but that's something that even now is kind of up for debate. And people say, oh, that's obvious because this time goes to here, and then somebody else says, yeah, but this one fits better if it's this. And my personal opinion is both. Like, these things happen in cycles. There's a reason John's referring back to Daniel's beasts, even though he's hundreds of years past Daniel. You get what I'm saying? He can't be talking about the exact same beast, can he? He's talking about the cycle of beasts that happen. That you have these people that rise to power and oppress and are evil, and then their empires get toppled, and then the next one comes out, and yeah.
Nothing
And
new
this
under
one,
the sun, right?
hmm?
Nothing new under the sun, right?
Exactly, yeah. I think it's all of the above, right? And the reason that I want to say that it's all of the above, what if we decided that it only referred to Rome and like Greece and all that? What if that was all? That's it. Well, then why are we reading the book now? they all Roman Empire happened a long time ago. Okay? But I think there's more to it. And if we decide it only means nations that exist right now, then what did it mean to them? Right? They were getting killed. This letter was written to a bunch of Christians who were actively being persecuted and killed. And you want to tell me about something that happened a couple thousand years? Thanks a lot, John. Right? No, I think the idea is it happened and is happening and will happen. And like the parting of the Red Sea will culminate into an ultimate parting. Right? That's what I believe. It's showing you a cycle. It's showing you a cycle of things. Anyway, I do think it's important when you read this stuff to know how much of it comes from the Old Testament. Because the answer is almost all of it. All the phrases, all the little things. It is one reference after another. Because these people had the scriptures memorized. They'd heard them from the time they were babies. They didn't learn Mary Had a Little Lamb. They learned in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, and the waters was out form, and the darkness covered the face of the earth. And that's how they learned, right? That's how they learned everything. Saying scripture. And so when you took a phrase out of something, they knew exactly. They import the whole story, right? And so taking all these images of Isaiah's judgment that he was proclaiming wasn't necessarily against the same nation that Daniel's was, and he's taking those judgment images and smushing them together. You see what I'm getting at? Because he's talking about judgment in general. God's wrath. Okay. The day of the Lord, which is a subject that it continues to fascinate me, and that I really need to learn more about. So I'm half afraid y'all are going to ask me questions, but we'll go through this. The day of the Lord. Revelation 6:12-17. I watched as he opened the sixth seal. There was a great earthquake. The sun turned black like sackcloth made of goat hair. The whole moon turned blood red. And the stars in the sky fell to earth as figs drop from a fig tree when shaken by a strong wind. The heavens receded like a scroll being rolled up, and every mountain and island was removed from its place. Then the kings of the earth, the princes, the generals, the rich, the mighty, and everyone else, both slave and free, hid in caves and among the rocks of the mountains. They called to the mountains and the rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of their wrath has come, and who can withstand it? So to talk about this section, I hate I didn't put it in a slide, but I want to explain to you that on the handout, it's on the very back page. Isaiah 2:19 says that, talking about the judgment that will come, Isaiah is prophesying against, oh my goodness, which nation would it have been? A nation that was oppressing them. I don't want to say because I'll get it wrong. Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, one of these big bad guys, right? And he's prophesying against them, and he's saying that the things that they have done to the Israelites, which is siege, come in, right, and gather them up, take them away, and just right, like complete overcoming of the people is going to happen to them. Way you've made us feel is how you're going to feel when God shows up. Okay, that's the basic idea of the message. But like all good poetry, it's written with a lot of images and a lot of things, a lot of very evocative images. So Isaiah 2:19 says, "People will flee to caves in the rocks and to holes in the ground from the fearful presence of the Lord and the splendor of his majesty when he rises to shake the earth." Do you see it? Shake the earth, yeah? And you're going to flee to the caves and the rocks and the holes in the ground. You know why they could talk about that? Because they had done it. That's where you flee to. You hide yourself in a cave. From the fearful presence of the Lord and the splendor of his majesty when he rises to shake the earth. In Isaiah 34:4, all of the stars in the sky will be dissolved and the heavens rolled up like a scroll. The starry host will fall like withered leaves from the vine, like shriveled figs from the fig tree. You hear it? It's exact, right? Yeah? So he's taking these passages in Isaiah and now he's kind of repurposing them. What do you think it means? What do you think it means for the sun to turn black and the moon to turn red? Jesus. That's what I was always taught. Oh, it's blood moon. Y'all better pray. Right? Like, when I was a kid, I was scared to death of a blood moon. Yeah, Jesus is coming. All right?
Something of destruction.
Destruction? It's not a good thing. Sun turn black. Right?
I think it has the precursor of the new heaven and the new earth
It-
that Chip Ingram talks about in the reality of heaven.
The what?
Chip Ingram
Oh, okay.
talks about it in the reality of the new heaven. So I see this passage as a precursor of the new heaven and the new earth about to evolve.
So I wonder why the sun and the moon have to go.
They represent God's.
Yeah, the sun and the moon and the stars, those are in Hebrew imagery, those are false gods, right? Remember Egypt had a god they called Ra, and that's why in Genesis 1, God didn't create the sun, because that'd have to name Ra. I don't say God created Ra. God created the light that rules the day. So I can like skirt that little issue, right? And the lesser light that rules the night. So I don't talk about the moon god in my God's narrative, because he's the only God. That's the point. You see it? So when you talk about the sun turning black and the moon turns to blood, these rulers of the air, you hear it in Paul's language too. Rulers and powers of the air, right? Okay. Then they can't do they're done. They can't do the stars fall. Oh my goodness, asteroids. No. Judgment has come. Because you follow these gods, and my God is bigger than that God, and my God will defeat. Right? So these images that in my life have always evoked fear kind of ought to evoke victory. It means my God showed up. And he's not here to have judgment on me. He's here to have judgment on evil. That's a good thing. Yeah? And the people who follow those gods are going to hide in the caves and the holes and say, let's just let a rock fall on me because that's better than what's coming. Yeah?
Jesus uses a lot of these same words in Matthew 24.
Yes.
Very parallel.
Yes, very parallel. And some people believe that he is talking about the fall of Jerusalem in that. That when two are in the field and one is taken and one is left, that's exactly what happened about 70 years after Jesus, or 40 years after Jesus died in 70 AD. Literally. Families torn apart. Right, it's cycled over and over and over and over. These things are happening. Y'all might have thought that heaven's being rolled back like a scroll. I've always thought of that as a beautiful image. It actually, in the original language, and you can see it better in Isaiah, is the heavens falling away. It's the heavens being destroyed. Because the heavens in this case is talking about the realm of the sun, the moon, and the stars that are also getting destroyed. It's a withering. Y'all garden. Is it a good thing when your leaves roll up like a scroll? That's what the dead ones in my yard look like. Little scrolls. It's a withering. It even says withering, yeah? Like the figs withering on the vine. Figs is a symbol of Israel and rabbis in the Bible. Almost, I mean, according to the things that I've read, that's a symbol of Israel gone bad. Those who aren't following the apostasy. Yep. But my point is this. I read these images and they sound horrible. And that's because I think of the wrath as directed towards me. And the truth is that, yes, we have trouble here, and there are martyrs, and the people who overcome by dying in many cases, just like Jesus did. We're called to follow him. That's what he did. Okay. So I'm not saying there's not, but the judgment is not reserved for us. We have to live through we're like collateral damage, right, of the judgment that comes. But, and this is, I think, to your point, I think what Revelation is definitely saying is that you have to sweep out the bad before the new can come in, right? That evil has to get kicked out before the New Jerusalem will descend. There's a cleaning house that has to happen. And God's people have to be able to withstand it. They have to be able to sometimes be the object of violence by the evil itself, and stay faithful to the end in order to be part of the new Jerusalem. But the things that we see on earth aren't the whole story. There's a cosmic battle that is happening. And that cosmic battle is this is how I know that. And they're talking about the sun, moon, and stars. Those are false gods, right? And while the dragon in this scenario fights human beings, you can see the angels are fighting the sun, this battle with the sun, moon, and stars. That means that the things we see here, I think, are a mirror of a battle happening in the spiritual realm. Right? Take a real life battle like's happening in Ukraine or Israel right now. Tell me there's not something cosmic behind it. I think there probably is. I don't think it's all judgment from God. I think a lot of it's evil rearing its own head. Personally. And then God's people are caught there, trying to be a light. The judgment isn't for you. When you read Revelation and you read about judgment, remember that you've been fighting a dragon. You fight a dragon every day. And you are called to stand firm and defeat the dragon with the blood of the Lamb, the word of your testimony, and not loving your life, even if it means death. That's so tough, y'all. That is not a hallelujah, amen kind of sermon to preach right there. But I believe that's what the Bible preaches from beginning to end. I really do. Philippians 4:13. I can do all things during the tribulation and the imprisonment and the beheadings and because Christ strengthens me. I can lose well through Christ who strengthens me, right? The day of the Lord throughout the Bible refers to, and that's a phrase that comes up at least a dozen times in the Bible. The day of the Lord refers to the day that God shows up and judgment falls on the oppressors. The day of the Lord happened to Pharaoh when the 10th plague happened. The day of the Lord happened here, and it happened here, and it will happen. And there's an ultimate day of the Lord. And again, these things happen in cycles, but the prophets talk about the day of the Lord with these nations well before Revelation was written. They are markers to an ultimate thing that is happening. It's happening. Day of the Lord. Good stuff. Questions? Issues? Disagree? Come on, you know you're saying, yeah.
I still take it though that there will be quite literally a lot of, you know, the moon turning black, or, you know, the thunder and lightnings and earthquakes and destruction, physical destruction in the earth. I mean, I know there's a lot of symbolism here, and maybe when the stars fall, that could be, you know, the gods being defeated by the one true God. But still, I'm convinced that there's a lot of literalness in the book of Revelation as
Yeah.
to what's gonna happen in those days.
It very well could be, because all of us would recognize it, right? Because we are steeped in these images as well. So it
when
very
it
well,
talks
it
about
very
the-
well could be in terms of communicating to us, his children, what's happening, right? But my point isn't that it means one thing or the other. I think it means
There's
one thing
more there.
and the other.
Yeah.
I think it means both. I think
Yeah.
it means, yeah, this is not something that's gonna be happy times. This is scary and hard.
Talks about numbers of fish being killed, numbers of humans being killed.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of literal bad stuff gonna happen.
Literal bad stuff
But
happened
we got
to
overcome, and we have
Egypt.
great promises beyond that. So.
Yeah, and literal bad stuff happened in Egypt. And I believe that when the Nile turned to blood, y'all know that was one of the plagues. That's a very symbolic thing that I think literally happened. The Bible uses imagery of blood crying out. When Cain kills Abel, his blood cried out to me. Yeah? What did Pharaoh do to all the little boys born around the same time as Moses? He killed all these babies in the Nile River. I think the blood was crying out to God, and he made the Nile turn to blood. Look what you did. It's a very symbolic thing that I think literally happened. Otherwise, why would they care? Hey, your river's blood. Nope. Right? Like, let me go. Nope. You know, I think it had to have literally happened for the story to happen. So yeah, I agree with you. Both and, right? Like, yeah. Yeah. But I think the message of understanding that I do believe there's a cosmic battle behind it can make us feel better, in some sense, about the scariness that happens in Revelation. And we defeat him, riding behind Jesus, right? Read Revelation, the two big beasts, the dragon with the 7 heads and 10 horns, also has a behemoth-like monster that comes out of the seas, very similar to Job. Leviathan and Behemoth. You had the dragon and the land monster. You have that with in Revelation as well. And so, and the behemoth represents the propaganda machine, and I mean it says it straight out. The propaganda machine of the dragon. And so, you know, that kind of brings me back to kind of a political view of Revelation, if you like, which is in Revelation there are people who take on the mark of the beast, and I, again, don't believe that that's a literal thing, but rather an allegiance. Who do you follow? In the same way that in Deuteronomy, God tells his people to write his name on their heads and on their hands. That means everything you do and everything you think. That's what that means. And there are Orthodox Jews to this day that wrap that scripture on their arms and on their head. But I don't think that's the original meaning that God said. I think he meant everything you do and everything you think is directed towards me. And so when they talk about the mark of the beast on the hand and the head, you can't deny that kind of, right? That's like putting your name on the hand and the head is not new here. We know this. And so I think it means allegiance. Who are you going to give your allegiance to? And some of the people give their allegiance willingly to the beast, but more people are tricked. More people are thinking that looks a lot like what Jesus did. Remember, the Antichrist comes and it looks like he dies and raises again, and he doesn't really. And some are scared into it because it says that he controls the economy, right? That's another thing about the image of being marked on your head. The coins all had the heads of the Roman emperors on them. There's some imagery there too. Some people were frightened into it because I can't buy and sell if I don't. I'm not going to have food for my family. My kids are going to die. That'll scare you into making a bad choice, won't it? And some people were deceived into it. And so that brings me back to kind of where we started. This is a quote by, in a Revelation commentary. This is the last slide. I don't know where we're about to go. Commentary written by Dr. Dennis Johnson. And he wrote that what he gets out of Revelation is this: the followers of the Lamb, who will rule the nations with justice and his rod of iron, must not be duped into worshiping state power as though it holds the keys to salvation. Neither should we quake in terror before a godless state. There are people who say to the Antichrist, who can withstand him? And that's interesting because that is what the Egyptians said about Yahweh, who can withstand him. So this phrase that people were saying about Yahweh, then the duped people say about the beast, we have to, who could withstand? Who can withstand him? And we're not supposed to be in either of those camps. We're not supposed to willingly or be duped into worshiping the state power, but we're not supposed to stand back and say, well, who can withstand it either, right? Neither should we quake in terror before a godless state. I love that quote, and the video I showed you at the beginning from the Holy Post was called Be a Loser Like Jesus. And I think that's pretty much what, what this quote says. Be a loser like Jesus. Good? All right, let's pray.